There we go. All right. So, hello, everyone. My name is Monica McCoubry. I am the Wildlife Education Specialist with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. So, today we're going to be talking about the science of freshwater predators. And this is going to talk about lots of different types of animals. I know our cover photo showed a fish, but we're going to talk about lots of different types of animals since lots of different types of animals can be predators. We're going to go through just kind of some of that today. It's going to be kind of a brief overview, but we are going to get into some fun facts and adaptations about some of those animals. And since we are in Nebraska, that's where we're having our program, we're going to really focus on Nebraska species today. But that doesn't mean that some of the species that we talk about might also be where you are too. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody. I'm going to share my screen first. It's like I've never done Zoom before. Okay. All right, hopefully everyone can see that. We're going to talk about freshwater predators today. Just so that everybody knows, I hope that you have questions and you can certainly have comments. Please feel free to put those in the chat. We probably won't get to them till towards the end. We usually do a question and answer session at the end, but if you do have questions and you do put things in the chat, just make sure that we're being on topic and that we're being kind to everybody. Otherwise, we do have that right to remove you from programs. I also want to point out that I'm by no means a freshwater predator expert. I am a science communicator expert, so I take that information and make it accessible for people to understand. I do a lot of research for these programs. I've learned a lot by doing these programs. I've been doing this for about 13 years, so I feel like I do know a lot, but by no means an expert. So if you have questions that I cannot answer, I will find someone that can answer those questions and I will get back to you. Everyone, regardless of whether they are here today or not, everyone that registered will get an email from me probably tomorrow sometime with the links to some of the things that we talk about today, and then also the links to just kind of some questions and some other resources that we have as well. Whether you're here today or not, I will put some of that information in the links for you. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about just like what freshwater is. I know all of us obviously know what freshwater is, but there's certain characteristics that make it necessary to be freshwater. And what does freshwater look like in Nebraska? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. All right, so what exactly is fresh water? So it takes on many different forms. So when we think of fresh water, we can think of obviously a river or a stream or a reservoir, but you also have to think about clouds, icebergs. Most lakes and even the water in your glass is obviously fresh, hopefully fresh water. So because of its wide range, it's often defined by what it is not, and that is salt water. So when we talk about salt water, it has a specific concentration of salt in it that makes it be salty. And obviously fresh water does not have that. So fresh water has less than 1,000 milligrams of salt per liter. So when you kind of break that down, it's about 1,000 parts per grouping. It's almost always defined as less than 1% salt. So when I was trying to find the definition for this, Canada had a different definition. The United States had different definition, but they kind of do all agree that it has to be less than 1% of salt. So that's kind of what we talk about. So all organisms need water to survive. So freshwater fish or other animals that live in the water, they are able to actively transport salt into their bodies and the water out of their bodies. And if it's a fish that lives in salt water, they're doing the opposite, right? So they're taking in that salt water and then they're maintaining that internal salt concentration and that balance of freshwater versus salt water. All right, so why is freshwater important? Every single organism needs water, but it only covers 0.8% of our Earth's surface. So freshwater ecosystems, they support a ton of different types of organisms. About 40% of all fish species are found in freshwater, and about 2% of all invertebrate species. And this does not also cover things that use that fresh water, like birds and mammals and things like that. So it supports a lot of range of organisms, more than just fish, which people talk about. There's also plants to consider as well, and also other organisms such as snails, worms, turtles, frogs, otters, beavers, that kind of stuff. And then those plants like algae, cattails, water lilies, aspen trees, willow trees. Even in Nebraska, our cottonwood species, I feel like you always kind of find them along the Missouri, or you find them kind of growing near water. So freshwater, everything needs water to survive, but there's a lot of fresh water that's needed for lots of other species, even in Nebraska. So what does Nebraska freshwater look like? So when we think of our freshwater, obviously we are not close to the ocean. We don't have salt water. So all of our rivers, when we look at the map of all of our rivers in Nebraska, at some point they empty into the Missouri River. Nebraska also, our largest storage reservoir is Lake McConaughey. Also Nebraska is the #1 state for total groundwater. So mostly from the High Plains Aquifer, or some of us may have known that as the Ogallala Aquifer, same thing. But if you took the High Plains Aquifer and you poured it over the state of Nebraska, it would reach about 38 feet deep throughout the entire state. So that's quite a bit of water. You can see why we are the #1 state for total groundwater numbers. In Nebraska, we also have a very special type of fresh water. We call them cool water streams. So we only account those for less than 28% of all the stream miles that we have in Nebraska. When you get to these cool water streams, there's a specific temperature, obviously, that they need to maintain that cool water stream. However, with all the climatic changes that we've been having, those habitats are extremely vulnerable, especially to those temperature fluctuations. So we're going to talk a little bit of some of those cool water streams in Nebraska, but again, we're talking about predators today. So it's all going to be still freshwater. So speaking of predators, so freshwater predators, what does that mean? So predators are going to be obviously animals that live in those rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, wetlands, and they survive by hunting and eating other organisms. So they might be large, they might have teeth, they might have special adaptations that help them survive and be predators in this environment. But they rely on capturing prey, sometimes by their speed, sometimes by their stealth, and even sometimes just because they're large and they have lots of power behind them. But they can be found in all different types of habitats, from shallow ponds and deep rivers. They also can exist in nearly every size category as well. So tiny insect larvae to large mammals. And we're going to talk about that wide range today. And then just the sheer diversity when talking about water, and especially fresh water. So you have things that aren't just fish. So you have amphibians, bullfrogs, reptiles, birds, mammals, all these different things that we're going to cover today. All right, so we're going to start with fish, just because I feel like these are the most thought of things when we talk about those freshwater ecosystems. So one of my favorite just kind of predators, and I do know that some of these are, fishable species, but they're still, oh, someone's not muted. Sorry, everyone. All right. All right, so this predator in Nebraska, the northern pike, has lots of different names to kind of fit. I don't want to say aggressive, but that's kind of what fishers and anglers have named them, as an aggressive behavior. So some of these I've never even heard of, but the northacuda, kind of like a barracuda, but northern, the slough shark, the hammer handle, and the water wolf. So these are just kind of some of those names that people give to these animals just because of their power and their predatory lifestyle. They are what we call a true piscivore. So they are fish eating. So you have insectivores, you have omnivores, herbivores. These guys are going to eat a ton of fish. It's about 99% of their diet. It's kind of hard to find a good picture of a pike where people aren't holding it or fishing it, just because they're so long. But this is the best that I can do. But if you kind of look, you'll notice that these fish are very long. They have a torpedo-shaped body. They have this really cool camouflage coloring, this kind of an olive green. It's perfect for blending into the vegetation where they live. They also have these very sharp, backward slanting teeth because when they go to grab their prey, they're mostly eating fish, and those fish are usually slippery. So it gives them kind of this explosive power. They can stand still or hover in the water, and then when they're ready to go, they have these fins that are loaded more towards the back of their body, so they can go from a completely stopped, standstill position and giving them this big explosive power, and they whip their tail and go get their food. So they're ambush predators, and they do it from, again, from this explosion of either like a bed of weeds or underneath a submerged log. They have this really cool ability to sit still for a very long time. Throughout this program today, we'll be talking a lot about animals that have a very large patience, because they're those animals that can sit still for long periods of time. But combined with that like explosive speed, it makes them one of the most efficient hunters in freshwater. All right, I know most of you know what a pike is, but here's just kind of a cool video of one swimming. They have these really cool looking fins, but again, towards the back of their body, this really long, I can play it one more time. That one's pretty short. But they have these really long kind of pointy looking noses. They fit really well in camouflage, so you can kind of see why they're such good predators. All right, another fish that looks similar to a pike is a muskie. Sometimes people and there's different types. Nebraska, a lot of people are kind of sought out after those tiger muskies. But this is a cool water species, known to anglers as the fish of 10,000 casts because they're so elusive and they're hard to get. They're very wary of anglers as well. So if you do catch one of them, it's pretty cool that you've done that. But again, they have these elongated bodies, very similar to the pike. They have camouflage stripes and spots to help blend into those vegetation and kind of hiding themselves from predators, or sorry, from their prey. They can reach speeds of up to 30 miles an hour for an underwater species. That's pretty awesome. And they're very long-lived for fish, so about 30 years in their natural environment. They are capable of chasing prey in open water. They go after big meals, so fish, amphibians, waterfowl, even sometimes small mammals like muskrats have been known to be prey for these animals. And then their size and power kind of lets them tackle anything about half their body weight. They also have a large snout that's full of these canine type teeth. They have needle-like teeth, and they are a sight feeder. So very good eyesight, able to pick out those there's prey in the water. They're also ambush predators. They hunt, again, very similar to the pike, kind of near submerged weeds and logs. These guys hunt mostly during the day, which is a little different than some of the other species. All right. Largemouth bass, we usually don't think of these as predators, but they are. So they don't have sharp teeth, sharp claws, but they have these very large mouths, and which makes them one of the top predators in their aquatic ecosystems. So again, built, they're very slender, they've elongated the streamline. They are known as a sunfish with a very large mouth. They have this kind of stocky body, which is very different than a muskie or a pike, but they have this very wide, large mouth. They can eat something nearly half their body size kind of in one gulp. These guys will lurk near some type of cover, so logs, rocks, vegetation, and they will actively at times chase small schools of fish like minnows, or sometimes they will leap out of the water for insects and frogs. They're extremely adaptable, living at lots of different areas, and they pretty much eat anything. So fish, crayfish, insects, frogs, even small birds that kind of hang out in their area. So with their wide diet, they're kind of this opportunistic behavior. It makes them really, really widespread and also very successful predators. All right, and then you have your walleye. So these guys get their name because if you look at their eyes, it looks like they're almost kind of foggy, but they're supposed to be like that, and it actually helps them see better as a predator. So they have this special layer called the tapetum lucidum, and if you look at it, it again looks kind of foggy. It almost looks like the animal's going blind or it's old, but it helps them see really well in low light. So that's how they got their name, walleye. These guys, they have a really cool coloration. They have this golden olive colored body and a white belly, camouflages perfectly against sandy or kind of rocky bottoms. These guys usually are found in kind of murky waters. And again, helping them see better is that special layer, kind of that eye shine that we sometimes talk about in different types of mammals. But these guys, it helps them see in low light. They have a very sleek, long body built for speed and in short chases. They're actively chase smaller fish. They're low light hunters, most active at dawn and dusk, but sometimes they will go during the night as well. Fish make up most of their diet, but again, they'll eat pretty much anything: insects, crayfish, worms, even younger walleye is not unusual to see that, but they actively chase smaller fish like minnows, young game fish, and they usually swallow them head first, just because they want to avoid those fins catching in their throat. All right, and then you have a catfish. So again, a lot of people don't consider these predators. Most catfish, like the channel catfish, for instance, they're more of like a scavenger. Flathead catfish are large and they're pretty good at like actively chasing their prey. So these guys can get big, usually individuals, sometimes like 80 pounds, grow over 4 feet long. Their size alone kind of lets them dominate those river ecosystems. They are one of the largest freshwater predators in Nebraska. They have this very wide shovel-shaped mouth, helps them just kind of engulf their prey. They have the barbels, so whiskers, sometimes people call them, but those barbels, they help kind of feel around, and they're also act like taste buds. Sometimes people will call catfish the living tongues, just simply because all over their body they have thousands of taste buds that kind of help them feel around on those river bottoms. They're not the most pretty looking fish. They're kind of brown and yellow, but it does provide really good camouflage against those muddy river bottoms and sometimes the log jams where they like to hide. They can lay motionless for a very long time. They like to be in these deep holes under submerged logs or even those cut banks, and basically they just wait for something to swim by and they grab it. They lunge forward and they actually have quite a surprising amount of speed for considering how big they are. Their diet is mainly fish, so shad, sunfish, carp, bullheads, even smaller catfish of their own species. They're most active at nighttime. So during the day, they remain kind of hidden in their cover, and then during the night, they will move to the shallows to feed. And again, unlike those channel catfish, which sometimes are scavengers, these guys kind of prefer the live prey, which they will then go after. All right, so we only have so much time, so I'm gonna kind of try to get to lots of different types of species here. So that was our fish. Obviously, there's more that we have not covered, but those are kind of the ones that I usually think of when I think of Nebraska freshwater species. So we're gonna move on to birds, and I know they don't live in the water, but they live by the water and they utilize a lot of those freshwater river streams, reservoirs, that kind of thing. So all right, this one I'm sure everyone has seen. They are around pretty much everywhere, those really watery kind of ecosystems, but a great blue heron. So Nebraska actually has two species of heron. We have a great blue heron and a green heron. Very different looking. Great blue herons are tall, kind of stork-like animals. Green herons are a little smaller, but they do have those really long necks. So they have these very long legs for wading in shallow water. They have this spear-like bill that they stab or grab their prey, and they have excellent eyesight for spotting the fish below the surface. So herons, they will stand again motionless in the shallow waters, or they'll slowly walk or stalk through these wetlands. So when prey comes within striking distance, they quickly jab their bill into the water to grab things like fish, frogs, or even small mammals. They also have a very large wingspan. They're large birds, about 6 feet. It allows them to cover long distances in search of food or even to exploit different types of seasonal habitats. They have a really wide diet, which allows them to thrive in lots of different areas. So wetlands, ponds, river ecosystems, that kind of stuff. These guys have also been known to eat stuff bigger than they can swallow. And there have been times that they've choked to death simply because they're trying to swallow something too big. So they're good predators, maybe not the smartest all the time. All right, here's another one that's a little bit smaller. Again, when you think of predators, most people, their minds go to sharp teeth, sharp claws, fast. They don't always have to have those things. It's simply an animal that eats other animals. So belted kingfishers are one of these that we have in Nebraska. They're not very large, but they have these long, straight, kind of dagger-like bills. They're perfect for snatching and holding those slippery fish. They have exceptional vision. The ability to judge distance for a bird is really important, especially for birds that are water seekers. So they actively can tell like the distortion of the water, which allows them to dive very precisely to catch their food. They have these kind of like stocky bodies, strong wings. They can hover, ability over water so that they can grab their food. They're not, again, the most striking looking birds. They're kind of a blue, kind of gray feathers. They have this shaggy crest on top of their head, but it blends in really well with the sky and the water. So if you're a prey item and you're looking up, it's going to be very difficult to see this bird because it's blending in with the sky colors. They often hunt from an exposed perch, which is like a tree branch, fence post, power line, something like that, near water. And they have been known to nest in these steep banks. They dig burrows, sometimes up to 8 feet long, which keep their young safe from most predators. After catching a fish, the bird will return to its perch, and then it will stunt or kill the fish before swallowing it whole. And then their depth perception, like I mentioned, is amazing. They have diving accuracy, which makes them really effective hunters, even in fast-moving rivers and streams. And there's another one, ospreys in Nebraska, not often seen, but we absolutely have them. These guys are very large birds, very strong talons. They have reversible outer toes, which allow them to grasp the fish with 2 toes in the front and 2 toes in the back, which gives them kind of a stronger hold. They can hold with their feet. They have basically they have these special types of spiracles on the bottom of their feet that help them hold those slippery fish. They have very good eyesight. These guys, very long, narrow wings, again, large birds, up to 6 feet wingspan, and that gives them a lot of power for, again, hovering and diving. They are an aerial hunter, so they just simply fly around. Once they spot their prey, they plunge feet first into the water. Sometimes they will fully submerge themselves to grab a fish with their talons. So they have these nostrils that can keep water out, which is a very nice adaptation for them because they're going in underneath the water at times. They have these very dark backs and this white underside that help them kind of blend in from predator or from prey so they don't see them. They're actually pretty successful as far as predators go. So studies show that they can succeed in catching fish about 1 in every 4 dives, which is very high compared to many other bird species. These guys eat about 99% fish. They're one of the most specialized birds and predators in Nebraska lakes and wetland. All right, American white pelicans. These guys, again, don't usually think of a predator, but they're migratory species in Nebraska. About now is when you're going to start seeing them moving around a lot because they're migrating back to their winter grounds. They have these very large expandable pouches under their bills, which are used to scoop up fish from the water. If you've ever seen Finding Nemo, they like grab the water and then they fly around with it and the fish in their mouth. It's not a storage facility for snacks. It's simply they grab the fish, they spit the water out or they drain the water out and then they swallow their food. Their bill is pretty large though. They can hold up to about 3 gallons of water inside of their bill. So think of 3 milk jugs. They are massive birds. They have 9 feet wingspan. It allows them to soar really efficiently and kind of glide along those distances. They have webbed feet, which makes them really good swimmers. They're pretty stealthy as far as their hunting ability. So their cousins, the Gulf pelicans, the brown ones, they usually dive and kind of make these dramatic splashes in the water. These guys work together. So they're able to herd fish to a certain area so that more of those pelicans can feed at once. They're often found in groups. Like I mentioned, they use themselves and their feet to kind of paddle and move the fish into an area where they can all eat together. And then they will feed in both natural lakes, rivers, man-made reservoirs. Lake McConaughey is a great place to see them. Harlan County Reservoir is another great spot to see them. And then they will eat pretty much anything. Minnows, lots of fish, occasionally amphibians and crustaceans as well. All right, here's a video of them using their pouch. This is a pretty fast-moving water system. This is not something that would be in Nebraska, although it could be if they're in the Missouri. But you can see they have this huge fish in their mouth. It's hanging out of their bill. But what they will do is they will grab the fish, and then they'll spit the water out, drain the water, and then they will swallow their fish whole. So this guy looks like he's having kind of a hard time. But you can see exactly on their pouch where the tail fin of that fish went, and he just swallowed it whole. So, all right, this is one of my favorite water birds simply because they look dark and spooky. A lot of people don't like them. These guys are the double-crested cormorants. So we have these in Nebraska. These guys are really different compared to lots of other of those birds that we've talked about. So they have fully webbed feet. They make them really powerful swimmers. They chase fish underwater. They have a very streamlined, elongated body. Their body reduces water resistance during those dives. They have this long kind of hooked bill, which helps grab those slippery fish and hold on to them securely. They have very dark feathers, which absorb sunlight. They dry very quickly because these guys, their feathers are less waterproof than other types of water birds, which, if you think about it, why do you not want waterproof feathers if you're in the water? Because when they dive, there's little bubbles that helps them swim faster. So not having that water repellency as much as other birds helps them swim faster and be a little bit more agile in the water. These guys will eat medium-sized fish, sometimes amphibians, crustaceans. They dive underwater on the surface. They swim with strong kicks and wings, and they chase their fish underwater. They can hunt in both lakes and rivers. They can actually swim several meters below the surface to catch prey that lots of other birds cannot reach. So they kind of fulfill that really interesting niche. A lot of anglers hate these birds. They do eat a lot of fish. And a lot of times, especially at game and parks, like when we stock our fish, these are guys are kind of the first ones there, kind of checking it out. And so a lot of anglers simply don't like them because they think they eat too many fish. But I think they're cool. All right, we'll head and move on to mammals. So we don't have as many mammals, but we're going to point out a few of these here. They're actually both in the same family. So first one is the North American river otter. These guys, for the longest time in Nebraska, a very long time ago, they were actually extirpated, which simply means they were completely gone from the state. And then through the work of Nebraska Game and Parks and a couple other agency organizations across the U.S., we brought river otters back into the state, and now they're actually doing very well. So they have these very long, streamlined bodies. They're very powerful mammals. They have this large, kind of oar-like muscular tail, and they can swim at high speeds. They have this very thick fur, which is kind of hard to see, but very thick water repellent fur that keeps them warm in Nebraska rivers and the lakes during the winter time. They have webbed feet for propulsion underwater, moving underwater. They have lots of different types of whiskers or that vibration right here. You can see they can detect stuff in the water and even detect very, very small amounts of movement in the water to find their prey. They're pretty agile if you've ever watched an otter. They can outmaneuver pretty much any of their prey in the water. They'll eat fish, amphibians, small birds, rodents, crayfish. And then sometimes they will hunt in family groups to increase their efficiency as far as getting that prey. And then you can see otters daylight, at dusk, pretty much anytime. And they're also able to come off of the water and chase their food on land as well, which is like a double whammy for a lot of those different types of things that they will eat. So here's a river otter in the winter time, just kind of showcasing he's making a lot of noise. I know you can't hear this, but when you go back to the video later on, you will be able to hear his noise. But again, they have this really long body, lots of whiskers, this really dark coloration. He's pretty good on land. And then here at the very end, you'll see him kind of dip into the water, making him a really efficient hunter in these kind of waterside, lakeside habitats. And there he goes. All right, next one looks very similar. It looks kind of like a mini otter. They're in the same family, the Mustelidae family, the stinky mammals, but this is the mink. So a little bit different. They have really dense water repellent fur that helps them swim in cold water. These guys, they are able to, again, chase their prey in both water and land. They have very sharp teeth and claws. They're a lot smaller than an otter, but that does not mean that they can't handle large prey. Anything from fish, frogs, small mammals, this very long body, partially webbed feet. They eat a very diverse diet. They are crepuscular most times, which means simply dawn and dusk. They can live in rivers, ponds, wetlands, some reservoirs, excellent swimmers, and also climbers, which again is a different thing. But minks are going to be a little bit smaller. They're really stinky. They have lots of different scent glands that they will use to mark different areas along their territory. And they usually catch something and they go take it back to their little spot where they're hiding or sleeping or their shelter, and they can stash it and store it and eat it later. All right, I only covered a few mammals just simply because we don't have a lot of mammal predators around the water. I guess a lot of things could be considered a mammal predator, but raccoons you can find anywhere, possums you can find anywhere. Minks and otters are really more closely related and tied to those water ecosystems. All right, and you can't forget insects. There's a lot of different types of insects too. And again, you don't have to be this huge, large animal with sharp teeth and sharp claws to be a predator. Dragonflies, they're one of the most efficient hunters in the animal kingdom. When you think of dragonflies, they have these very, very large compound eyes. They provide nearly 360-degree vision, excellent for spotting prey during the mid-flight. They have two pairs of really strong transparent wings, very, very helpful for them when they're flying. They're very agile and they can make quick, precise movements when they turn. If you ever watched a dragonfly, it's very easy to see that. They have this extendable labium, which is this mask for snatching prey quickly. Any of you have seen the original Alien or any of the Alien movies? The inspiration for the alien's mouth actually came from a dragonfly larva. So if you look this up on YouTube later, and maybe I can include it in the links that I send you, but dragonfly larvas have this really cool small like space right here that they can, part of their mouth that they can extend out and grab their food and then bring it back in. That was one of the inspirations for the Alien movies back in what, the 70s, 80s, when it first came out. So and it's easy to see why. These guys can hover, wait on vegetation for a long period of time before they dart out to grab their prey. They like pretty much anything, but they eat a lot of mosquitoes, midges, even other smaller dragonflies. The nymphs or the young dragonflies, they're aquatic. They're also ambush predators. They live in the water for most of their time, and then when they're ready to molt and become an adult, that's when they take flight outside. So they're able to be on land and in the water. They hunt both in the air as adults and underwater as nymphs. The nymphs are also really gregarious when they go to eat. And again, they are one of the most successful hunters in the animal kingdom. They have a success rate of about 97%, which is insane. All right, pretty much all of us has probably seen one of these on the water. Water striders, they're very long, slender legs. They have water repellent hairs that allow them to kind of walk on the water. They can actually support about 15 to 20 times their body weight on the surface. They have, again, these water repellent hairs that create surface tension that supports their movement. They have really good vision for spotting prey on the water surface. They have these piercing, sucking beaks to inject enzymes, and they suck fluid from their prey. They can also detect very, very small movements and vibrations in the water, as small as 0.05 millimeters in the water. So even the smallest amount of movement, they can detect that to go get their food. They're one of the few predators that specialize in that surface hunting. So we hear a lot about these insects that are underwater. These guys are one of the few ones that kind of have found that niche of hunting at the water's surface, because a lot of other animals can't do what they can do. They are a key predator of mosquito larvae and midges, so we love these guys. One study found that water striders can reduce mosquito larval populations up to 70% in small ponds. So it sounds like we should just release some of these around places. But again, since they have such low competition of where they're hunting, they're very efficient predators. All right, here's a picture, or I guess a video of one, just kind of watching it move across the water. It literally just looks like they're skimming across it, and it's really cool that they can do that. All right. These guys are underwater predators. There's a reason they're called predaceous diving beetles because they are diving under the water to get their food. These guys are voracious as far as a larva and adults go. They will eat pretty much anything they can catch, and they will do their hunting all underwater. Both larvae and the adults are going to be aquatic, so a little bit different than the dragonflies. They can move about 2 body lengths a second when they're underwater, so they're fast. The adults, they have these scissor-like mandibles that rip apart their prey. They hunt mostly at night. And then the larva will have 14 eyes and 28 distinct retinas. So they're fantastic predators. The larva, when they go to catch their food and kill it, they have a pretty long, prolonged, gruesome death. They use their mandibles to inject enzymes into their prey, and then slowly they will suck out the fluid, the liquefied parts, and then leave the rest of the body just to float through the water. Some of these large diving beetles, they can survive underwater for up to 30 minutes using the air bubble that they will create. So, pretty neat predators. All right, water scorpions. These guys are huge. If you ever have done any like macro dipping in Nebraska, you oftentimes find one of these. They look like a stick bug, but they're underwater. They're about 2 inches long, and they have these really long kind of front legs that they will use to grasp their prey. They have long tail-like siphons, which act kind of like a snorkel, which allows them to breathe underwater while they're submerged. They are also an ambush predator, so they will lay motionless underwater near vegetation, the pond bottom. They'll wait for fish, tadpoles, or other aquatic insects to go by, and they will quickly grab their prey with their spiny front legs and then pierce it with their sharp tubular mouth or their rostrum and inject enzymes into it. So very similar to that larva of the diving beetles. Another great adaptation, again, they can remain motionless for hours. They use their snorkel to breathe. So they're very effective kind of stream hunters or ambush hunters. All right, I'm sure most of us have seen one of these. They kind of look like water striders, but they don't have the long leggies like the other ones do. They're very kind of torpedo-shaped bodies, but they can trap air underneath their wings so that they can breathe while they're underwater. They have very large, for an insect, backward curving teeth that they can grab onto things, light colored belly, dark back that they can remain hidden from predators under the water or at the surface. They are also ambush and pursuit predators, so they can strike and chase you. They will swim upside down near the water surface. They kind of wait for their prey, and then they will strike using their piercing and sucking mouth parts to immobilize and digest their prey. They will also eat mosquito larvae, aquatic insects, occasionally small fish, and also tiny tadpoles. All right, we just got a couple more here, and then we'll be kind of finished and we can do a question and answer session. But I just put reptiles and amphibians together. So in Nebraska, if you were with us last month in August, we talked water snakes. So this might be no new information for some of you, but if it is, northern water snakes in Nebraska, they're found other places too, but they are very good and efficient kind of lakeside water stream bank hunters. So long, muscular body for swimming and constricting that prey, very good eyesight. They have the tongue flicking to kind of detect those chemical cues. These guys also have teeth as well to grab those slippery fish. They have the blending of the colors. So if you look at their bands, they fit really well in with the stream banks, which they will hunt along on the ponds, river edges, They'll eat fish, frogs, tadpoles, small mammals, even waterfowl. Again, they eat primarily fish and amphibians, but they'll pretty much take anything. They'll just lie in wait until something goes by. And you can find them pretty much any watery area in Nebraska. And just again, we do not have water moccasins or cottonmouths. Many people think that we do. What they're actually seeing are these northern water snakes. All right, and then bullfrogs. So these guys in Nebraska, they can get pretty large, 6 to 8 inches in length, very large mouth, and they can just swallow prey. It could be a bird, it could be a mouse, it could be an insect, another tadpole, another frog, pretty much anything they can fit in their mouth. They have a sticky tongue, very strong jaw that allows them to capture insects, small fish, even other frogs. They have good night vision because they're nocturnal hunters. They'll eat insects, crayfish, birds, snakes. They pretty much thrive in any different types of pond. Another thing that these guys can do is that they can overwinter as tadpoles for up to like 2 or 3 years, I want to say. I can't remember. I think it's even longer on some species. But if the conditions aren't right, when they're tadpoles, they can stay and overwinter as a tadpole till the next year when conditions are better. So once bullfrogs are established, it's very, very hard to get rid of them. So depending on who you talk to, whether they're native or invasive, they're native to certain parts of Nebraska, but they've been moving west because of things like man-made ponds and people use them as bait. So outside of their native range, they are considered highly invasive. All right, and then the snapping turtle. These guys are pretty large. They can weigh up to 35 pounds or more. If you go to Schramm Education Center and meet Big Snap Daddy, he is about 100 years old and he weighs about 100 pounds. So they live long, they get very large. These guys are perfectly camouflaged. They have those really dark colors. They have bands that kind of blend in with the water and the mud and that aquatic vegetation. Very powerful jaws that they can crush prey. Long muscular neck, which is where a lot of people get bit because they don't realize how long turtles' necks are. Even if you hold a turtle back by its back legs, it can still extend and reach around all the way to bite in the back. So good predators, they sit motionless at the bottom of a lake or a pond and they wait for something to swim by. They reach out and they grab it. Mostly nocturnal, but you can see them very often during the day, and then they can capture large prey with a single strike. Also, the problem for their prey is that once they grab, they don't let go. So it's pretty much impossible. Once you're a small little animal that has been captured by a snapping turtle, it's pretty much impossible to escape. So. All right, and then I have a last quick video. I know we've all seen snapping turtles. This one's clearly in an aquarium. I love how the goldfish are like bigger than he is. There's a couple of them in here, but just watching them swim through the water, they don't look like these horrible predators that they are. They look pretty cute, but they're built for the water. They're built for the land. So very interesting animals. All right, so that was all that we have for freshwater predators. About a month, a little bit more than a month. We'll be back. It's going to be October. It's spooky month. We're going to talk about death in nature and how, when an animal dies, kind of the ecosystems that form throughout that and how important it is for those animals that when they do die, what does that do to the landscape and how do other animals and the ecosystems benefit from that. And then in November, we're going to talk pronghorn. And then last one in December, we're going to talk about shrikes. So please join us for those. Each one of those has a separate registration, which I always include when we do the links and the emails afterwards. And if you liked this, we have lots more education YouTube programs on here. There's probably about 90 different ones now. I've kind of lost count, but pretty much anything that you want to know of, there's probably a science of. Nebraska Wildlife Education Facebook and Instagram. We have kind of fun facts. We have what's going on in Nebraska, some resources, good to follow and like those. And then we also have our wildlife education website as well. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in October. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and see if there's any comments or questions that we had. Might not be. Oh, someone mentioned something and I didn't way at the beginning. I don't know what you were talking about. Sorry. So, um, okay. But yeah, otherwise, that's pretty much all we have. Unless I see some other questions come in, I'll send you guys, everyone, the registration for the next one in October and the links to this, and then also just some more links and resources to things that we talked about today. So thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great month, great weekend. Enjoy your September and the cool weather, and we will see you in October. Thank you so much.